from the various countries, friends and colleagues of the Homegrown school feeding community, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We must commend the Global Child Nutrition Forum for providing such an excellent opportunity for the global school feeding community to come together, to share ideas, and to learn from and inspire each other. Today, there is hardly any need to make a case for the importance of school feeding. There is global acknowledgement that there are multiple returns on investment in school feeding programs, not just in education and health, but also in the rural economy, including social protection and agriculture. But perhaps as important is how it is that school feeding has become the gateway to probably the most critical investment a country can make, the investment in human capital. It's becoming clearer that the 21st century will be defined by knowledge and skills. The nations that are best able to present the most knowledgeable and the most skillful citizens will prevail in commerce, in science, in technology, and of course will enjoy the greatest prosperity and the longevity to enjoy that prosperity. Nations that do not invest enough to produce the required level of talent and skills will be left behind, a farther distance than ever before in the history of mankind. Nigeria took the decision to embark on a school feeding program as an important part of our human capital development agenda by tackling the broader issues of eradication of poverty, food and nutrition security, and increasing school enrollment. The program itself is one of 6 components of our social investment program, for which about $1.3 billion has been provided in every budget cycle since 2016. Of that sum itself, a percentage of it is what we dedicate to the Homegrown school feeding program. And that percentage is about 20% of the entire sum. Nigeria is a federation, as you know, of 36 autonomous states and the federal capital territory. The states are ethnically and culturally diverse, and which explains why we chose a decentralized rather than a one-size-fits-all approach to implementing the program. So state-specific menus are designed based on food availability, nutritional value, cultural sensitivity, and affordability. Community participation and ownership is an important feature. The cooks, who are 98% women, are recruited through a community engagement process. Each cook has a bank account. Farmers who supply their produce to the programs are also within the communities in which the schools are. The managers and coordinators of the program were taken through fairly rigorous capacity building sessions at different stages of implementation. The national framework for implementation, as well as monitoring and evaluation of the program, adheres to the 5 global standards for school feeding, namely policy and legal framework, program design and implementation, institutional capacity and coordination, and funding standard and community participation. Governance in the form of oversight and approval of procurements is vested, in our case, in a steering committee comprising the relevant ministries of education, agriculture, health, youth and sports, and budget and national planning. And we also have the Ministry of Women Affairs being a part of that steering committee. The steering committee is chaired by the Vice President, and although the funding of the program is domiciled in the Ministry of Budget and National Planning, the Office of the Vice President, which I have the privilege of occupying, actually oversees the entire program. And this is, in some senses, our way of emphasizing the importance of the program. The strategic implementation team is multi-sectoral in composition and is led by a program manager who reports to the special advisor to the President of Social Investments, who is in the office of the Vice President. She's here with me today. The institutional framework has proved to be a critical element in the success of the program and is replicated in the states. So to get a sense of the scope of the program and the cost of the program, let me just share some facts with you. At a cost of about 19 cents per child per day, we're able to provide a balanced meal for every one of the children. 9.3 million children in 49,837 public primary schools in 26 states of Nigeria benefit daily from school meals. According numbers, we're spending about $1.76 million per day, and over $183 million has been invested so far. The program itself employs about 95,422 cooks and over 100,000 smallholder farmers linked to the program who supply locally sourced ingredients on a regular basis. Now this translates, just to get an appreciation of the figures, this translates to about 594 cattle, that's cows, 138,000 chickens, 6.8 million eggs, 83 metric tons of fish that are procured, prepared, and distributed every week. And you can imagine the quantity of starch and vegetables required for this program on a weekly basis is also quite impressive. Dietary energy and nutrients with established links to cognition, carbohydrate, protein, fats, iron, and iodine, as well as minerals with public health importance, are targeted by our homegrown school feeding program. The program aims to provide 50% of the recommended nutrient intake targets for protein and prioritized micronutrients such as iron, iodine, zinc, vitamin A, folate, and vitamin C, and 30% of energy because of the high burden of undernutrition and micronutrient deficiencies that we already have. There's also a deworming program attached to the school feeding program. By the end of the year, at the end of this year, the number of new states joining the program will increase, and our national homegrown school feeding program is set to become the largest feeding program in Africa. We were talking earlier about, I think, with Daniel and Alan about South Africa and how South Africa is doing, I think, about possibly 200,000 more than Nigeria at the moment. And was saying that they already lost the competition because we just have more people. So, except if they're going to get to 200 million people by the end of the year, it's very unlikely. So we're set, as I said, to become certainly the largest homegrown school feeding program in Africa. Our feeding program has been, by all accounts, a considerable success, and some of the possible success factors are: one, that we learned from past failures. An earlier attempt in 2004 by the then federal government to implement a homegrown school feeding program in 13 states largely failed, leaving about 2 states only at some point still carrying on the program. Now, the basic problems and weaknesses around at that time were around governance, multi-sectoral coordination, and buy-in at the highest levels of political leadership. So we try to avoid these same pitfalls in the new program which we launched at the coming of the new government in 2015. One of the most important features that we tried to ensure we had in place was unequivocal political will. The federal government was convinced that a homegrown school feeding program was fundamental to its social investment program and its overall objective of radically improving human capital development. Now, this explains the commitment of the government at the highest level. Secondly, for transparency and accountability, the sheer size of the program and, of course, the very many moving parts made it imperative for us to institute a strong governance structure and robust procurement and funds disbursement processes to ensure transparency and accountability and also trackability. The fourth was the program itself offered a good value proposition for all participants. The program not only provided a revenue market and a sustainable income for our farmers, it also improved the livelihoods of cooks, most of whom now have access to useful and affordable financial products and services that meet their needs. Financial inclusion is a key enabler to reducing poverty and boosting prosperity. And this, of course, the program has helped considerably in financial inclusion because, of course, all of the participants now have bank accounts. Many in the hinterland and rural areas who never had any bank account now have bank accounts. So we have access to them, and they also have access to financial literacy and other advantages. Moreover, with the capture of their biometrics and opening of bank accounts which I've talked about, we have seen that they are now able, and we are also now able, to ramp up our country's needs for identification, for planning, and social inclusion. Fifth, we instituted a multi-sectoral coordination approach. Following the federal model, I'll explain the federal model earlier. The federal level, we have 5 ministries, 5 of the relevant ministries as a steering committee. We have the same replicated at the state level. So the states were encouraged to domicile the program and the leadership of the program in the office of the governor of the state, who appoints a program manager, and the program manager coordinates the multi-sectoral team made up of individuals from the ministries of health, education, agriculture, justice, and state planning commissions, which is more or less an exact copy of what we have at the federal level. The sixth is strategic partnerships. And the partnerships that we've been able to form are an important part of the success of the program. The World Bank, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Partnership for Child Development and Imperial College, Food and Agricultural Organization of the UN, and of course the World Food Program are strategic partners in the implementation of the National Social Investment Program generally, and other complementary interventions leading to increased social benefits to Nigerians. I must say here that our fortuitous meeting and association with Leslie Drake of PCD and the Imperial College is an important part of the success of our program. Expert advice and support of the PCD, and also lending us being what is on who was the program coordinator, has been a tremendous help to us. Lastly, the program meets the crucial objective of helping children reach their development potential. We have seen that school feeding can encourage children to enroll and stay in school, and that well-fed children are better able to participate in lessons. To illustrate this, school enrollment increased by about 25% when this program began, and of course that's just an average, in some states even more. Also, the fact that our investment in school feeding positively impacts the nutrition as well as health and learning outcomes of our children, enhancing our overall investment in education development. Empirical data from a study that was done in 2009, far back as 2009, on the effect of school feeding programs on primary school attendance in rural areas in Lagos State, had shown even then that not only did school feeding improve enrollment and attendance, but it also increased the parents' income. So school feeding has certainly earned its place as a critical driver of human capital development. But I must say that our efforts have not been without serious challenges. First, the current coverage is still very well behind the numbers that are waiting on the queue. If we cover all primary 1 to 3 children, which is what we're doing at the moment, that will be 12 million children. If we were to cover all of them, that's in all of the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory of Nigeria, that will be 12 million. If we cover all from 4 to 6 children, we'll have 24 million. And there is also, of course, a target to bring to zero the number of out-of-school children in Nigeria at the moment, which is close to 9 million children. Now, that, of course, we're looking at huge numbers, and that of course means more commitment, more budgetary commitment. So, and of course, numbers are increasing every day. So this is a moving target. 24 million that we're talking about is not going to be 24 million next year and the years to come. But tied to that challenge is also the peculiar issue of feeding children in conflict-affected areas. In the northeast of Nigeria, especially in Borno State, where we're about to start a school feeding program. The numbers are large, and of course, security challenges remain there. So feeding children in conflict zones presents a challenge of its own, a completely different challenge. But happily, I have seen good indications from Martha and our friends from WHO that they'll be working with us to see how we can effectively deliver homegrown school feeding in Borno State and some of the other crisis-affected areas of the country. Second, to ensure price stability and food security, there is further need to work with smallholder farms on how to boost productivity and storage to ensure reduced post-harvest losses. Of course, we also need to do some more focus on with our aggregators to ensure efficiency as the numbers grow. There's also a need to engage our cooks on environmentally friendly cooking methods to meet the challenges of climate change, as well as reduce the harms of cooking with firewood, which is what you find in some of the hinterland areas and the schools in the hinterland. A lot of the cooks use methods that are not environmentally friendly, and we need to deal with some of these issues. Fourth, of course, is that funding will always be an issue. Measurement and evaluation, research towards improving our processes remains a recurring need as we grow the numbers in our efforts to perfect our activities. So we're always going to have the funding issues, and I would think that with political commitment, a lot of that can be handled. But of course, there's also a great need for us to work in collaboration with agencies and with countries of the world that are interested in the same programs, and of course the assistance will always be welcome. But I think that the most important thing is that governments, especially our governments, must dedicate substantial parts of the budget to homegrown school feeding. There is nothing like commitment by the government itself through its own budget, through its own resources, because that not only shows the commitment, but it also ensures that the people themselves understand the reason and the need for the homegrown school feeding and for all of the other interventions in public education. As I conclude, let me say that for developing countries such as ours, and of course many African countries, by far the greatest challenge for us in the next 3 decades is that of effective investment in health and education of our population. Nutrition is key to both. To enable children usefully participate, learn, and develop mentally and physically, and to be able to compete in an increasingly competitive global environment. By 2035, Africa will have 1.2 billion people. Over 50% of that number will be young persons under the age of 25. Today, 60% of the unemployed in Africa are young people. Nigeria, its most populous country, will become possibly the 4th most populous nation in the world by 2050. The consensus of opinion is that the early years of the lives of individuals are crucial for their mental and physical development. If the necessary interventions in nutrition, healthcare, and education are missed at that critical stage, then we may lose whole generations to stunted development. We have an opportunity today, and it is a great opportunity today, to make a real difference in the future of our people and our continent. So let's do it. Thank you very much.